Very few nations in human history have changed the course of the world. But one did it in less than 2 centuries. At the end of the 18th century, the land we now know as the United States was little more than a group of scattered colonies along the eastern coast of North America. There was no imperial tradition, no centuries of accumulated wealth, and certainly no army capable of competing with the great powers of the time. And yet, in a little more than 150 years, this young nation would become the largest economy on the planet, the most powerful military force in the world, and one of the greatest cultural influences in modern history. How did this happen? How did a newly born nation surpass empires that had existed for centuries? The answer involves courage, ambition, devastating wars, bold political decisions, and a deep belief that the future could be built by the hands of ordinary people. Today, we're going to explore how the United States went from being a fragile political experiment to becoming a global superpower that reshaped the balance of the modern world. It all began with an act of defiance that seemed almost impossible. In 1776, 13 colonies decided to break away from the most powerful empire on Earth. The American Revolutionary War was not simply a conflict about taxes or territory, it was a battle over a radical idea for its time, the idea that a people could govern themselves. Leaders such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin stood at the center of a movement that many believed was doomed from the beginning. After all, they were challenging the British Empire, whose navy dominated the seas and whose army was widely considered nearly unstoppable. Yet, against overwhelming odds, the colonies won. The result was the birth of a new nation that had no king, no aristocratic hierarchy, and no guarantee of survival. The world watched with curiosity. Could a republic built on liberty and representation truly succeed? The early years were uncertain and fragile. The new country carried enormous war debt, its political institutions were still developing, and its borders remained vulnerable. European powers still controlled territories nearby, and many observers believed the United States would eventually collapse or fall back under colonial influence. But something unusual was happening within the young nation. There was a sense of energy and possibility, a belief that the future had not yet been written. And it was during this delicate moment that one strategic decision would dramatically alter the nation's destiny. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made one of the boldest decisions in American history, negotiating with France to purchase a massive territory known as the Louisiana Purchase. The deal cost $15 million, a price that many critics considered risky for a young nation already dealing with debt. But the impact was enormous. Overnight, the territory of the United States nearly doubled in size. Vast rivers, fertile land, and immense natural resources suddenly became part of the nation's future. Yet there was a fascinating detail: almost no one knew exactly what existed in that land. To find out, Jefferson sent an expedition led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Their journey crossed forests, rivers, and towering mountains, opening pathways for a westward expansion that would permanently transform the map of North America. As decades passed, a powerful belief began to shape the American mindset. Many people came to believe that the United States was destined to expand across the continent. This vision, often called manifest destiny, encouraged millions to move west in search of opportunity and a new life. Towns began to appear where wilderness once dominated, roads were carved through vast landscapes, and new trade routes connected distant regions. Within just a few generations, the country stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. This enormous territory would eventually provide the foundation for unprecedented economic growth. But the expansion also intensified deep internal conflicts, and one of those conflicts would push the nation to the brink of destruction. Before we continue the story, here's a quick invitation. If you enjoy diving into historical narratives that reveal how the world was truly shaped, consider subscribing to the channel right now. The goal here is to bring you a regular dose of audio history, exploring the events that changed the course of humanity. And if this video has already surprised you so far, go ahead and hit the like button. That simple action helps the channel grow and allows more people to discover stories like this. Now, back to our journey. The greatest test of the young nation arrived in 1861, when the country plunged into a brutal conflict known as the American Civil War. Tensions between the industrialized North and the agricultural South had been building for decades, especially around the issue of slavery and the balance of political power between states. When war finally erupted, Americans found themselves fighting other Americans in one of the deadliest conflicts in modern history. For 4 years, devastating battles were fought across towns, farms, and cities. At the center of the crisis stood President Abraham Lincoln, who believed the survival of the Union was essential. When the war finally ended in 1865, the victory of the North preserved the country and led to the abolition of slavery, fundamentally redefining the nation's future. In the aftermath of the war, the United States faced the enormous challenge of rebuilding. But something remarkable happened in the decades that followed. Instead of remaining weakened, the country entered a period of explosive economic growth that stunned the world. Railroads stretched across the continent connecting distant cities, factories began producing goods on an unprecedented scale, and millions of immigrants arrived seeking opportunity. Many came from Germany, Ireland, and Italy, bringing labor, skills, and ambition. At the same time, visionary entrepreneurs began building massive industrial empires. Figures such as John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, and Henry Ford revolutionized entire industries. Oil, steel, and automobile manufacturing transformed the American economy, helping propel the nation into the position of the world's leading industrial power. Yet even with this extraordinary economic expansion, the United States had not fully become the global superpower we recognize today. That transformation would come in the 20th century, when the nation was drawn into 2 conflicts that reshaped the global balance of power. The World War I marked one of the first moments when the United States began playing a decisive role on the global stage. But it was during the World War II that the true turning point arrived. While much of Europe and Asia lay devastated by war, American industry was producing at levels never seen before. Tanks, aircraft, ships, and military equipment poured out of factories at astonishing speed. By the end of the war, the United States had not only helped defeat authoritarian regimes but had also emerged as the most powerful economic and military force in the world. If you're finding this story fascinating so far, this is a great moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next historical journeys. Stories like this show how decisions made generations ago continue to shape the world we live in today. And of course, if the video has kept your attention this far, don't forget to leave a like. It truly helps the channel reach more people. After World War II, the world entered a new era defined by tension between 2 global superpowers. On one side stood the United States, on the other stood the Soviet Union. This period became known as the Cold War, a global competition for political, military, and ideological influence. For decades, the United States invested heavily in technology, science, and education to maintain its leadership. Out of that rivalry came remarkable achievements, including the space race that culminated in the Apollo 11 moon landing in 1969, when American astronauts became the first humans to walk on the moon. The moment symbolized far more than technological achievement. It demonstrated the capacity of a young nation to lead humanity into entirely new frontiers. In the decades that followed, American influence expanded far beyond politics and military power. Culture became another powerful force. Movies produced in Hollywood reached audiences across the globe, music dominated international airwaves, and innovative technology companies transformed the way people communicate, work, and live. The result was something unprecedented in history, a nation that shaped the world not only through power, but through ideas, creativity, and innovation, and perhaps that is what makes the story of the United States so remarkable. In just a little more than 2 centuries, a political experiment born from 13 colonies evolved into a force that helped define the modern world. It is a story filled with enormous risks, bold decisions, and an enduring belief that the future can be built by those who have the courage to pursue it. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for being part of this journey through history. If you're not yet subscribed, now is the perfect moment to join the channel and continue exploring the events that shaped our world. And if this video sparked new curiosity or gave you a new perspective, leave a like. It truly helps the channel continue bringing more stories like this. because history is filled with moments that change everything, and understanding those moments can completely transform the way we see the present.